Everything is personal right here. Everything is personal right here.
Well, there was an epiphany. There was a moment, I remember it distinctly. I was 19, 20 years old. I had my son. My wife was working. I was not. Now, my first wife, by the way, was 35. I was 18. There's a story there. If I have to explain the 17-year difference and how that worked, you need to go back to biology class.
Well, you already talked about your virginity story, so there's a pattern there, right?
Yeah, I lost my virginity at 13. I grew up reading porn magazines, like I said, like Forum and all that. And I had 11th grade reading comprehension in the second grade. So, for example, the girl I lost my virginity, she couldn't believe I was a virgin because I knew things she did. But that's just from reading. Now, anyway, epiphany, man.
Epiphany.
I was sitting in my living room in an apartment. My wife was at work. I didn't have a job. I pretty much was selling weed to, make ends meet. And my kid was crying. And I had no way to feed him. There was nothing in the house. I actually had to call my dad. I think I told you my dad ended up living with me in the end.
Yeah.
No, my family didn't want him. My dad was horrible in the end, senile and I took care of him because regardless of the abandonment, regardless of not being there emotionally, he, one, made sure my children never went homeless and made sure my kids, if I needed gas to go to work or food for my kids, he was there. So, that's why in the end, I took care of. But I'm sitting there, I can't feed my kid. And I just realized that if I don't change, that if, what I'm doing isn't working, and that if I don't change, they're going to take my kid from me. And I'm going to be that person that lost their kids. And that was a little selfish. It was about my kid and all that, but there was some selfishness in it that I didn't want to be that person. They told me my whole life I was going to be dead or in prison by 18. I was that kid.
Yeah.
And I should have been. I mean, we haven't even talked about my homeless years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've dumpster dived. I've slept under cars. Yeah, the homeless people in Richmond loved me because I'm the one who cued them into the fact. By the way, here's a great little tidbit, man. If you ever have to dumpster dive, go to a pizza delivery place. They box the food before they throw it away.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to commingle with other actual.
I showed up the first time. That's a great memory, man. We had this lot. There was this place called the Daily Planet where all the homeless people, and I couldn't get in there.
Yeah.
What I did was I gave plasma and I did day labor and things and I worked jobs. I just couldn't keep a effing job or a fucking job.
Yeah.
I call it the summer of 1,000 jobs. And that's actually where I learned smoking weed slowed my brain down enough that I would shut up, work, and be able to keep a job.
Yeah.
Because it never occurred to me to go into work stoned because safety reasons.
Sure.
But I don't get high the way other people do. I don't know about you, but I see, people, they're giggling. For me, it's almost like getting straight. I mean, I get a good euphoric feeling, but my brain slows down.
Yeah,
I don't, when I talk to my therapist, he hates the term, but voices, they're all my voice, but it's 1,000 of them going off at once in different directions. And when I smoke, it literally, I don't want to say quiets them down, but
it does. It does quiet them down. It mutes them in a little bit, and for me, it allows. So I sort of use the analogy. I have a million windows open on my computer. like a million of them. And every single time I share my screen with somebody, like, oh my God, you got a million windows. I'm like, yeah, but that's what goes on in my head. And with cannabis, it's shuts down some of those windows and I could focus on the task at hand, or maybe
The,
several at the same
the
time.
metaphor I give everybody is the printing press goes off my mouth before the editor ever sees what's coming out.
There you go.
And when I smoke, and I mean, I've pretty much, there were periods I quit, but I've been high every day, almost every second of my life since probably 17, 18. You know, there were periods like I quit for 6 months for my first wife. She actually, because it does change my personality, threw a quarter of weed back then cost $50, threw $50 at me, told me to go buy some weed. This was after 6 months of me
Make me
quitting
feel better.
because she was tired of dealing with my ass.
Yeah.
It does change my personality. I quit for almost 3 years for the wife I'm with.
Yeah.
When I met her, she was actually going to be a FBI agent. She was in the second rounds of interviews, getting her master's in criminal justice. And her boyfriend before me was a deadhead. And she said she would not, have that in her life. I was a single parent of 4 children, and I had always been with somebody I had to fix. Somebody was like my mom. But for me, it was trying, part of my trauma is if you're somebody who wrongs me, I don't tell you to fuck off. I come back at you and try to show you how what you did was wrong and how you should change. And, that it's a pattern that's been in my life.
Yeah, I feel you.
And
So a lot of similarities too. Michael, I have some questions I ask all my guests. Like it's sort of a shift in focus or music related questions. So
yeah,
I wanted to start off with if you remember, what was the very first concert that you attended?
the very first was, I want to say David Lee Roth and Whitesnake.
Okay, that's a good one.
I've been to so many concerts in my life.
Yeah,
I didn't go to them younger.
yeah.
I went 3, but when I started working, doing security and all that, they're countless.
Yeah.
I've done
What was the last one that you attended?
2001. No, not 2001. It was I'm not sure of the year, dude, but it was the Ozfest Black Sabbath reunion tour. The Ozzy Osbourne Black Sabbath first reunion Ozfest. I was working at the flood zone, or actually, I wasn't working at the flood zone at that point. I had worked. We won a trip to go to it from a radio station. I told everybody about what I did for a living and pretty much was treated like a pathological liar. Me and my wife were shunned kind of on the bus up there. Even the DJs that were with us were kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we get there, we park where the buses are. They're walking up to go wait in the line. There's a big double door thing where carts can drive in. And there sits my friend Rock.
Yeah.
Got security. Hey, Mike, how you doing? We start talking. It's 2 hours before the festival starts. He's like, what are you doing here? I was like, yeah, I'm coming to the concert. He's like, really? He's like, yeah, man, you want to come in? He said, yeah, skip the line. You got your passes? He's like, yeah, we had laminates.
Yeah.
He's like, he's like, yeah, go get your people. So I went and got everybody. And 2 hours before anybody walked into this festival with Slipknot and everybody else, they got to get their seats wherever they wanted. And the whole time they ridiculed me on the way up as I told them I worked security for concerts. That was one of those moments.
Yeah.
But just quickly here, I wanted to tell you something about my kid, the 19, that I just realized, man, that my worldview had to change. That it couldn't be about me. That I had to start considering, because up till that point, I had done some stuff, very illegal stuff, and horrific stuff to people, violence and robbery and theft and uh, home invasion type stuff. And this was before I met my wife. Remember, I was homeless
Yeah.
and it just changed my worldview, man. I started looking at people like myself and started realizing like my actions would hurt people,
Yeah.
and that, if I did this, then this. And I started, it was just an epiphany of my kids deserve to have a parent,
Yeah.
not to be in foster care, not to be in group homes, not to be, unfortunately, yeah, they did grow up a lot like I did, with a lot of the behaviors I learned from my family and my family. They were exposed to them. And their mothers,
Yeah.
okay, their mothers were, dude, like I said, I was a single parent of 4 children. In the state of Virginia, for me to win custody of 2 children from one marriage and then 2 children from another marriage, both times, the running joke is it's not a testament to how good of a parent I was. It's how great I was at picking batshit crazy women. My second wife thought my ex-wife, my second wife, thought she was a god reborn as a human, and her female lover thought she was a vampire who had to drink my ex-wife's blood to sustain herself. We proved this in court.
Wow.
My second wife had a hysterectomy. My last 2 children were miracle children. My last two. My youngest 2 children are miracle children. My second wife was not medically supposed to be able to get pregnant. She had maybe 3 days a month that she wasn't bleeding. She had PCOS, and it was, if we tried to engage, to create a child, I'm trying to be nice about it. I look like a Marilyn Manson, Charlie Manson,
Yeah.
covered in blood. So we didn't. So there were really only a few days a month that we really could. And yeah, 2 children and a set of twins that she had a miscarriage. I actually went and met the doctor that told her she couldn't have children. And I said, I want to meet the doctor who told her she couldn't have kids. And he said, I told her she couldn't have kids without help. I said, hi, I'm Help. Nice to meet you.
Exactly.
So back to your questions, man.
Yeah.
I'm
All
sorry.
right. So one more music question. For the
Yeah.
next year, you could only listen to 5 albums. Now, you don't have to remember the name of the album.
Oh,
It
I
can
know.
just be whatever. So what would be those 5 albums?
Uh, Five Finger Death Punch, the greatest hits. Uh, the uh, Shine Down. Uh, any of their greatest hits, or their greatest hits album. Pink Floyd, The Wall. Uh, Iron Maiden's Live After Death. And hmm, that's a good one. Probably Led Zeppelin, Zosa.
Four. Got it. Okay. Final question. Please describe what your room looked like growing up.
Um, I had a full size or double bed on the floor, no frame. TV on a stand, literally looking at the bed with a nightstand on one side. Um, I had a chair and I had a big room, a chair and a bookshelf that had all my parents' things on it. Um, and there was a chair. There was a golf bag that sat in the corner, and then just a dresser. And that was pretty much it.
Anything
Now,
on the walls, any artwork or any
I
posters or
mean, I
anything like
did
that?
for a while. I had blacklight posters. I did the black, especially when I, got home. There was a period before I got thrown out from about 15 till almost the end of 16 where I had dropped, my parents let me drop out of high school. I had an LDED teacher convince them that with my level of intelligence and how I was not really applying myself in school, you got to understand, man, I got made it to the junior year in high school, and never failed a class. And I never did any homework or classwork. I aced all my tests. They hated me, all my exams. And I had teachers in grade school tell my parents the only reason they passed me is because they didn't want me in their class the next year. So I had a teacher when I got out of all the group homes and all, and they tried to transition me back into public schools. Um, all I did at that point was sleep in class. So it wasn't a problem. I just slept. And She had to convince my parents I'd never go to college. I was already working a full-time job and going to high school, and that they should just let me get on and work. I dropped out. So for a couple years, or probably closer to a year, I paid rent. And this was in the 80s, $50 a week, 200 a month. Now, when my parents threw me out, I was basically, I had worked till 3 a.m. in the morning, came home. It was a Friday night, came home, went to bed about 6. My mother came into my room, screamed at me to clean the room, at which point I told her to get the fuck out of my room. I paid rent. Yeah, that was the last day I lived there.
Hey, Michael, where can people engage with you if you want to share any handles? Where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, there are two. We were talking about my social media.
Yeah.
I have two different accounts. One started as a cannabis growing account. And because once it became legal here in Virginia, I had always said that's how I was going to make my million. I've had some health issues, but I'm actually going to get back into it. I'm very well known for it. I was actually taught back in the 90s before the internet was a big thing by a group of growers here in Richmond who grew for a biker gang. So I was guerrilla growing, and I was treated like a prospect, and yeah, it was an interesting way to learn. But anyway, remind me of the question, man.
Your social handle, how people will get in
Oh
touch.
yeah. That one started that way. It literally kept getting killed. I stopped doing it as far as showing the cannabis. Just started sharing my humor. That's Primal Edge's Genetics
Mhm.
1. There is a dash between each underscore, between each word. That has not between the one. The one is just at the end. That account has at the moment 460,000 followers. I make no money off this, by the way.
Yeah.
This is all about personal validation. Remember, I told you the ego thing.
Yeah.
When you have the problems I have, and you have now the accident, consider what I did for a living. The being a bouncer, being security, very up there, and now I'm holding a chair down. So it's about validation for me. The other is actually my AOL account. That's AOL. I have, by the way, where my brain will switch words.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, Aphasia. My Facebook account is Mr. M. Jacobson, all one word, and that has 650,000 followers. The only thing I really share there is stories about myself, which actually I don't share a lot of. I have a problem like you've seen here. We probably haven't finished a single story we've gotten into. It is jump. You knew it when you talked to me. We talked about the autism and the jumping around. It bothers me. I never told you, finished telling you about the religion. My view on religion, by the way, is because it's going to drive me nuts if I don't tell you this. I think everybody's got it right. Long as you're showing respect to a higher power, however you do it. If it's just you in your head going, hey, or it teaches doing to your fellow man like you would do for yourself.
That's the common thread. So I'm
Yeah, yeah.
Jewish. I'm
Long.
Jewish, but I wanted to, and you said something. It's
Yeah,
interesting that you brought this up because,
yeah. I went to Rutland Torah Academy,
well,
dude, and I went to Hebrew school.
yeah,
Yeah, I
but
did it
like
all.
being Jewish, that's why I wanted everybody to understand, and you sort of brought this up. I'm genetically and ethnically Jewish. I can choose to be Jewish religiously, or I can be a pagan. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that I'm ethnically still Jewish.
People
That's
don't understand that
no.
it's actually a race.
Yes.
And anything that you can tag with DNA and look at the DNA and go,
Exactly.
okay, you have Ashkenazi Jew,
Yeah.
like I'm 80 some percent,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, I my heritage that I do know about, the Stearns,
Yeah.
they're from Romania and they're Gypsy Jews.
Yeah.
So, and
Exactly.
in Romania, Catholic, anyway. But yeah, uh, it's
Follow the golden rule. You just said it. It's follow the golden rule.
yeah.
It's a common
And if you
thread.
do that,
Yeah.
then great. It's everybody's got it right.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can go into any religious, a church, a synagogue,
Sure.
and feel like I'm praying. I describe my relationship, and I'd use the term God. Actually, uh, I believe God is both male and female. So if you want to say goddess, that's great. We can get into the whole Adonai, the name of God that has the
Nice.
male prefix and the female suffix, all that good stuff. Remember, I had Talmud class
Yeah.
and learned all this stuff. Funny thing is, the man who gave me such a wide view of religion was a rabbi. He was the teacher of my Talmud class.
Yeah.
And there were a couple things where he said to me that just the logic stuck. And one of them was we were learning about how, the Jewish religion teaches that, the earth is only like 6,000 years old. And, of course, we're going dinosaurs and history, but that's if you know the religion, you get it. And of course, I'm like, well, wait a minute. How do you describe, how do you account for the carbon dating and for the dinosaur bones and for the, things and along those lines? And his answer, although I don't logically really accept it, was so logical, you had to stop and think. He goes, you're real vain to think that this is the first world God has built, and extremely vain not to think he wouldn't have used the remnants of those worlds to create this.
Yeah.
And we were doing Kabbalah. And I asked him, I'm like, so magic works? He's like, why wouldn't it? He's one of the reasons actually I accepted paganism
Yeah.
later in life. And because when you start learning those things, you start seeing parallels. But
Yeah.
yeah, back to what you were saying, and absolutely, being Jewish is a race, and
Yeah.
I'm actually proud of that race.
Mhm.
We are a warrior race. If you look at, I, I I grew up learning about like the 7 Day War, you know,
Yeah.
and I grew up being proud of that. That you had, a nation the size of Rhode Island with Texas and Florida and all the huge states that we have all attacking this little thing. And 7 days later, all of those countries came to the US and said, please make them leave us alone.
I love that too.
I also grew up, I have a hard time with what's going on now because I grew up with the cafe bombings. I grew up with the terrorism. I had a cousin that was a captain in the IDF, a woman. Robin actually lives over there now. But the rockets, all that stuff. So, and I try to stay away from it
Yeah.
because I have those memories, and I can't account for the people in charge there now. Because I remember Golda Meir and,
Sure.
but so for me, I don't really announce being Jewish,
Yeah.
but I'm not ashamed of it either. When I grew up, we didn't have black kids in our neighborhood. We just didn't. I didn't see the first black kid over in my neighborhood till probably middle school. And that's because then we were coming from other areas. I went to the one school behind, and I was a Jewish kid. So you want to guess who heard all the Jewish jokes?
Oh, I'm with you. I
Yeah,
understand.
my
Exactly the
defense
same thing.
came to telling the jokes better than they could. They'd start telling Jewish jokes, and I'd go like really morbid. The great one that would shut them up was like, "How do you put 100 Jews in a Volkswagen? 4 in the seats, the rest in the ashtrays." And you'd watch people; they'd laugh, they think it's great, but they'd stop coming at me. That was one of the jokes I told.
Disarming, yeah, disarms them. It takes
Yeah, and that's what I learned.
Yeah.
That humor pretty much stops people. Later in life, I did learn that, because I am bigger. Once I got a lot larger because being bullied and all that, I didn't want to be bullied anymore. And I did find that when I got bigger and caught the attitude of I can beat not. All right, so let me explain. It's not having the attitude of being mean, but having the attitude of you don't frighten me. I can beat in my head. I can beat the living holy hell out of you if I wanted to. Not that I am, not that, but that little bit of confidence. And when you talk to people, people treated me differently.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons after my accident, I really lost it because that went away.
Yeah.
And remember, we talked about the ego and the validation. And like I said, my therapy now is a lot different than it ever has been. And I'm really thankful for this one doctor. I'm sorry, man. I'm going down tangents.
No, amazing. I
And
just wanted to. So first off, I wanted to
at a couple hours of this, you should get a good show.
I wanted to let my audience know that thank you for sticking with us. We're going to work on a part 2, and I also appreciate. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that other stuff. And I really
Yeah, I
appreciate.
will. And I checked out your YouTube. I did
Oh,
go like
thank
you
you,
asked.
thank you. And then for my audience, I love the feedback, and thank you so much for the stars and the feedback because I'm always learning. And thank you for buying the book. And I want to say like such a fascinating story. We have a lot of parallels. We definitely need to dive into a couple other things. I love that you're able to take some of the difficulties and some of the obstacles that you had in your life and sort of flip them around and allow them to drive you towards your purpose in life as you're going forward. So
That's actually a big lesson for me, or a big thing that I apply. I tell people because when they hear, and this was even before this therapy, but I always use this. I had a choice with my parents. I could learn to be like them, or I could learn to learn from them. Now, there were things I learned to be like them because I didn't know better. But the things like my parents never paid attention to me. My kids grew up with me very involved in their life. Very not involved like a helicopter parent, but very involved. Making sure they went to sports, making sure things I didn't have. So I learned from my parents. And that's one of the things that I really just hits me. If you can't learn from the things that happen, your mistakes or whatever, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
At all. You're stagnant, and and just with the way I am, I can't be that way.
Yeah. it's a great message to be able to learn. But I want to thank you so much for being on and sharing, being so open. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching and listening. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share this episode, and hit that bell. Like, comment. I so appreciate that. And check me out on social under Len May or Len May DNA. Find out more on LinkedIn or lenmaycoaching.com. And remember, everything is personal.